Good morning, Matt Waldman. It's Monday, week 9, almost in the books. We got another game tonight. Also, some changes ahead for some teams in significant ways. We'll start off with that. The New Orleans Saints fired head coach Dennis Allen today. Won the first 2 games this year, have won 7 in a row since. Who is it? Darren Rizzi, the special teams coach, is going to take over. There was a telling statistic, I think, from yesterday's loss to the Panthers. The Saints outgained Carolina by 150 plus yards, ran for 150 plus yards, won the turnover battle. And over the last 20 years, teams that have done that have gone 275-0. They are now 275-1.
Well, I mean, listen, if that makes it a good reason to fire Dennis Allen, then I guess that's, if that works for them. They throw it up on the wall and see if it sticks, and I guess it stuck. But, I mean, again, injuries have been a big deal. Right. I would say losing Derek Carr, having Chris Olave concussed multiple times in his career is probably not a great thing for your football team's future.
Michael Thomas probably had some thoughts on the whole Derek Carr, Chris Olave thing. Yeah. Oh, yeah, we all know them.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Yeah, so, I mean, look, they're a struggling team. They looked so promising early on. So I think the collapse is probably the biggest part of this. But again, I feel like that this is part of that midseason impulsiveness. I would probably see if you could try and turn things around a little bit, go from there. But maybe what they want is an early round draft pick, so they'd rather have the mess.
Right. And, we had a lot of, you mentioned the first 2 games, 45 points a game. Clint Kubiak doing things with motion and rollouts and play action that seemed like they were setting him up for great success. It has set some of them up for great success, said Alvin Kamara, who even yesterday had fantastic success. Great volume, the kind of workload we see Christian McCaffrey getting in that San Francisco offense. We talked about it last week. And so don't think that's going to change. Another change, though, the Raiders, Antonio Pierce fired offensive coordinator Luke Getsy, also quarterbacks coach Rick Scangarello, and offensive line coach James Craig. I know you think these guys are valuable commodities. Why don't you defend them while I tear them down for ruining the Raiders' offense?
I love how you set that up. That was masterful, Bob Harris.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I like that. It ain't gonna fucking work.
My first rodeo.
Luke Getsy. Well, I mean, he was a good Mac quarterback. I can tell you that. I can't say much about the coaching since then. And certainly the Bears have a lot to say about how Luke Getsy's offenses were, and they weren't very happy about it. I can tell you that Rich Scangarello is an interesting character from the standpoint that he is probably, I would wager to bet that he's been fired more times as an NFL quarterback coach than any quarterback coach in the history of the game. Maybe that's not true, but he's certainly been in San Francisco. He's been in Denver. He did his stint in Kentucky. He's been in Atlanta, Philadelphia, maybe. But he's been in a lot of places as a quarterback coach in the past 10 years. And
now it'll be another. And we don't know.
It probably will be another, but I don't think he'll probably be at a college. I would say that that's probably where he'll be back. But it seems to me that where he's been, he either hasn't had great quarterback prospects, so maybe that's part of the deal, or that he just hasn't been much as a quarterback developer in the level of what they want developed, or what's expected to be developed within an NFL organization, which isn't really like great fundamentals, but maybe just game plan savvy, game plan management, things like that. I don't know. Position coaches in the league, to be honest with you, Bob, that's kind of a confusing thing to me, because you think just by name that they're responsible for helping develop the player, but they're really about game plan. So what really do they do that they're going to be responsible for that's going to help or hurt the squad if development really isn't part of that equation? So it seems to me like one of those ABC government jobs that we always complain about in the bureaucracy of a big organization, and we blame them for things that maybe they shouldn't be blamed for, or we give them responsibilities for things that they shouldn't have responsibility for.
I think the Antonio Pierce will probably be at some point taking some responsibility for all this. Hasn't named a replacement yet. Former Commanders, Washington football team offensive coordinator Scott Turner is on the staff. He's the passing game coordinator. Seems like a logical candidate. And who the quarterback will be, we'll find out after the bye. Don't be surprised if it's Desmond Ridder. Don't be surprised, I said, Matt Waldman. You feeling that?
Red light, green light, red light, green light. Somebody's gonna take a hospital ball. That's all. He's gonna.
Don't get Michael Thomas all worked up again.
I like Michael Thomas being worked up. What was he worked up about anyway?
Worked up about Derek Carr being a sorry ass quarterback and being the reason why Chris Olave got a concussion and being a horrible person. And it was a pretty lengthy tirade.
I may have to go read that one because
you probably want to go read that.
Michael Thomas is an intense motherfucker.
I think he called somebody a granny ass. I'm not sure. Like, I am a prolific swearer. I swear with the best of them. I use fuck as a hyphen. Like, I'm good at this, and I have no idea where he was going with dragging got a granny ass. I don't know, man. It was pretty good stuff. And so, yes, definitely worth going and reading. It was so intense that David Carr on NFL Network after the games and after it was all over didn't even say anything. He was scared, I think, because David Carr is like he has one purpose
defend his brother,
right? Defending Derek Carr. And he said nothing. There was nothing said about it. That's how off the hook it was, because I don't think he could have got it started without going in deeper than they wanted to go.
Wow.
Yeah, it was an amazing tirade, and you should go read it. Everyone should go read it. It's on your ex. Can't guard Mike. Can't guard Mike. So check that out. Also, Matt, I was told something.
Uh-oh.
I was told Joe Flacco would make the Colts offense better. That's what they told me. I believe them. He went 16-27, 179 yards and interception. The Colts put up a season low 227 yards of offense. Yes, Jonathan Taylor was part of that. Didn't score a touchdown in a 21-13 loss to the Vikings. The defense played great, forced 3 turnovers, and still they couldn't get anything done. Shane Steichen asked if Flacco will remain the team starter, if he still thinks he gives the veteran a better chance to win than Richardson. Steichen said, right now, yes. Is that going to change? Feel it or fuck it?
I feel it's probably going to change. Because I don't think Shane Steichen really wanted to make this change. I think Mr. Irsay wanted to make that change because he was tired of hearing all the big mouths on the big networks, finding big dramas to make out of things. And I think that's really what went down here. And Steichen was like, I want to keep my job. Me and Ballard want to keep our jobs. So let's make this tough decision that we really don't want to make. And because we so didn't want to make it that we didn't tell our offensive players that we were making the decision, which meant that it was probably said, make the decision right now. I want to hear you tell them. I want you on speakerphone while you're doing this. That's probably what went down here. And Flacco, I mean, look, I'm going to detail this tonight, I'm sure. And Flacco is generally a better decision maker than Richardson has been.
Correct.
Absolutely. He has more experience with reading defenses and the disguises defenses offer. That's true. But doesn't explain that on a 3rd and 2, you have Trey Sermon wide open with Agent Zero, my buddy's favorite player in the league, playing way off of him in the flat, and you don't take the easy throw and you try and force the ball into double coverage 15 yards downfield, and that effectively ends the game for you. Or you underthrow a corner route that looked like an Anthony Richardson throw that you would have expected. But Flacco's been playing in this league longer than David Carr's been, defending Derek Carr. And he still underthrew the ball to Downs that cost him an interception and a drive. And Downs is visibly upset with the play. I mean, there were multiple plays like that you looked at and said, would we be better off with a rookie who's going to grow out of that? or has a chance to grow out of that, or would we be better off with a veteran who has lapses back into that after he gets comfortable becoming a starter? Because that tends to be the nature with Flacco. We know what we have with Flacco, and that ceiling is lower. So I understand that Irsay wants to win now, which is probably why Michael Pittman has been forced out there or been influenced greatly to stay out there, because that dude should not be playing, as Brandon Angelo said last week. He's
one catch, 14 yards. One catch for 14 yards. Pretty disappointing output. We all thought Joe Flacco was going to cure all the ills of all the wide receivers, and Josh Downs had a decent game. Maybe not what we would all expect against the defense giving up the most fantasy points to wide receivers. But we should have maybe seen some of this coming with knowing what Brian Flores has done with his offense, with his defense. I felt coming to this game we were all having too high of expectations for Flacco because Brian Flores has been like a wild man with the blitzes and the rushes and so on.
Deep drops and
right.
You're right. You're right about that. I mean, it wasn't going to matter either way on some level. They just figured Flacco would be a little bit better at handling it.
But, so I want to I want to dig a little deeper on Richardson, because you mentioned Chris Ballard. So I'm like everyone here who listens to this or reads anything I've written knows I've been all in on Richardson, and that's a big reason why.
Sure.
But not the only reason why. The other reason is because I don't study these guys. I'm not looking at the film. I'm not grinding all of doing that. I'm looking at the opportunities. I'm looking at the systems. I'm looking at the talent around them. But I'm looking at the bigger picture too. And the same thing that guy said is the same exact stuff Chris Ballard says independently about Anthony Richardson. The Colts see the same thing Matt Waldman sees in Anthony Richardson. They say the same words about him. The same things. It's not that he can't throw; he hasn't thrown. It's not that he's not. He needs experience. He's not good. And so and they thought all along that he was a way better passer than the scouts widely suggested coming to the game. He just needed more development. So if you're taking him off the field, that goes against everything you've said. You knew when you drafted him that it was going to take something for him to become a good quarterback. And that was going to be more reps. In the meantime, as a fantasy investor, I don't care. Two things can be true. Just like Patrick Mahomes can be the best NFL quarterback out there and not a great fantasy quarterback, Anthony Richardson could be not a great NFL quarterback while he's learning on the job and be a phenomenal fantasy quarterback. How do I know this? Well, how about the first 4 games last year? How about the first game this year? I don't care if he's good or not. I want points.
Well, there you have it. I mean, listen. I mean, I think that ultimately the Colts are probably screwed because of Irsay. That let's just put it that way. Because Irsay is an impulsive motherfucker who essentially wants what he wants right now and may end up firing this whole staff to get it, and the staff will try and convince him, well, you guys gave Anthony a try, he's not our guy, and now he's got to learn either a second offense in 3 years, or he's going to be maybe not the favorite guy in the building anymore because the coaches can say we can extend our careers if we convince Irsay that we need a new quarterback, which is what these guys do to play this game, because they have to deal with the narcissistic parent. They have to manipulate situations so that they don't get the quick boot and get alienated fast. But there is a chance that the team comes in and maybe Irsay isn't that way, and maybe what happens is that maybe they do it like the Rams and say, listen, let's bring in an offensive specialist, and we tell that offensive specialist, look, you're tied to this quarterback. We need you to succeed with this quarterback and nobody else. So don't try and get rid of that.
His name was Shane Steichen.
That's what we thought. But maybe that's, but the fact that Irsay decided that he drank the Slurpee and he needed to get off the highway exit ramp faster than he thought and, take a pee break in the bushes, maybe his whole highway metaphor wasn't a good one at his age. So, I know he's rocking the 20-something-year-old kind of sport, kind of wear, in his Instagram photos and things like that. But, his prostate isn't listening to him on that end of the spectrum.
I have way more to say about this, but we need to move on.
But yeah, we do. But especially because I'm reading Mike Thomas going, dude's scary and panic and just throw the ball. Get him the F out of here. He's so ass. Dude tried to lie and say I was jealous of them making Chris the wide receiver the whole time. He can't even get him a decent ball. He need his ass whooped. They fired all them coaches trying to cover his flaws up, and he's still doing the same shit. Wow. Okay, that's just a preview.
That's the tip. Just the tip of the iceberg there. By the way, Josh Dubow from the Associated Press, if we're going to go back to Carr. Most losses at starting quarterback through 4 seasons, Derek Carr, 43. 5 seasons, David Carr, 53. 6 seasons, David Carr, 56. 7 seasons, Derek Carr, 63. 8 seasons, Derek Carr, 70. 9 seasons, Derek Carr, 79. 10 seasons, Derek Carr, 87. 11 seasons, Derek Carr and the great Archie Manning. With
Derek Carr, when I used to have knockout factors in my scouting for quarterbacks, Derek Carr failed the knockout factor in terms of his ability to make decisions from the pocket that weren't impulsive and make poor throws as a result of pressure. All I can say about Mike Thomas, whether he's maybe not the most appropriate guy in social media to get an opportunity and decide he's going to announce his retirement in this fashion and not get another job, which is a shame because I've always loved Mike Thomas. But Mike Thomas was the guy who called Drew Brees up on draft day and go, when are we getting to work? Or that Cardale Thomas said, when I became the quarterback at Ohio State due to injury, Michael Thomas basically said, where am I sleeping? Because I'm going to be stuck to you like glue until you know everything that I need that needs to be known so that you can get me the ball, and I'm going to work with you until you basically are so annoyed with me that you're going to do what needs to happen, and then I'll move out.
We're moving on, but let me know when you get to the granny ass portion of this commentary.
I will.
I think it was Devontae Adams related, but anyway.
Okay.
Sam Darnold. Watching him play for the Minnesota Vikings, he threw for a season-high 290 yards, had 3 touchdowns, completed 28 of 34, threw a couple bad interceptions, lost a fumble on a kind of controversial hit. But watching him, is he really any better or worse than the guy who played for the Jets?
I think he's better. He's more experienced, but he still has a lot of the same flaws that we're seeing. He hasn't developed into like what Aaron Rodgers is at his best. We're not going to be putting him in that spectrum because of the things you just described. He still has issues with defenders dropping and disguising things on a level that he's always good to be vulnerable for a linebacker dropping into coverage or a slot corner dropping in and sliding over and not seeing those types of reads. He that's his blind spot, and he's a guy who will make some hero plays. I'd say that he's gotten a little bit wiser with it, and he's toned down the worst of it, but it's still there in his game. So he's a gunslinger. He's a bit of a gunslinger
with the right coach. Feel that?
Yeah, I feel it. He's I feel it with where he is. I will never look at him and say he's one of the best quarterbacks in football, but he's a competent starter who makes some nice gutsy plays.
So what are we going to say when the Vikings trade for Matthew Stafford tomorrow?
What are we going to say?
What will we say? What totally hypothetical, people. I know I'm just making it up, but there were rumors like a week ago that was that was in the works, or that people were discussing it.
I'd ask them how Jim Irsay got into the building in a sensible organization, because you're not going to do that. You're not going to step that far backwards. You're going to roll with what you got at this point, who's been in there in camp with you. And as fun as Stafford could be, are you really going to take another year off his career with a guy who's had 2 bad back injuries and who's been beaten to death and is still tough enough to handle it, but you're going to really stall the development of that team and the momentum of that team by trading for someone whose career could be gone at any hit? I would say the answer is hell
Not going to
no.
happen. The Rams have
No.
won 3 in a row now. They're not doing a damn thing.
Talk about granny-ass quarterbacks. That would be, at least that granny-ass quarterback is a tough granny, you know?
C.J. Stroud. He's averaging, J.J. Zach Reason sends out his little data dump every week, and I love reading it, and this was jumped out at me. C.J. Stroud averaging 14.4 fantasy points per game this year. Doesn't have a quarterback with top 12 performance in 5 weeks. Is he a fade until Nico Collins returns to form, or is he a fade until they figure out how to pass protect?
I think he's a fade at least until Collins returns to form, and then that way you have at least a second weapon in addition to Tank Dell, who maybe you can get the ball out quick to, and you can do a little bit more designed work with 2-man route combinations of getting them outside. He's still keeping them competitive despite the fact that his guards and tackles are having a lot of trouble with twists and blitzes, cross blitzes, combinations of all those things. He's doing a great job relative to what he's dealing with, but he's starting to fade as a fantasy guy for sure. I would not be wanting to start him if I didn't have to.
By the way, that was something that Brian Flores also exposed nicely a few weeks back.
Yeah, and I featured that in the top 10. I was like, guys, keep an eye out for this.
Right, and I would say, like, even when Collins returns, I mean, if the best part of Collins' game is a deep game, waiting for those routes to develop can be a little bit of an issue when there's guys nibbling at your granny ass or whatever it is. He's a young man. I didn't call him granny. Jayden Reed. Is he the Packers' go-to guy at wide receiver? Field or fuck it?
Fuck yes, he is. Absolutely he is. It's been interesting to me to watch a lot of analysts who I respect in the industry just talk about how he's a limited player. Maybe he's not the best player. He's more of a Deebo Samuel type of player, which is really good, but maybe not an elite guy. I think this guy has potential to become an elite route runner. And a good example of that I saw yesterday was a back shoulder fade where he did a terrific job of accelerating at the top of the stem to get about a half step ahead of the defender to really sell the vertical route before he turned suddenly to make the catch. He's a good bad weather player. He's a good runner after the catch. His routes are better than you think. I've always said he's a Stefon Diggs starter kit with all the pieces that you need to develop him into the advanced version. And I think it's coming. I think that when the dust settles, he's the one that's going to get a second contract in Green Bay, or he's the one that's going to make Green Bay wish that they didn't make the decision to let him go.
Yeah, the workload has not been what we want. He's only been above 20% target share twice this season. He needs more opportunities, I would say. And I blame Jordan Love. Okay, maybe not. Jordan Love, though, seems like he's getting a little too comfortable with the job. The interceptions are an issue. Matt LaFleur angrily defended him. Will you do the same?
I think Matt LaFleur is going to angrily defend him for 2 reasons. Jordan Love is a good young quarterback, and he's continuing to grow and develop, and development happens in fits and starts. It's not linear. So I would defend him overall, but I'm not going to defend the Utah State-esque quicksand decisions that he makes when he makes a mistake and then he doubles down trying to be a hero and he ends up throwing pick sixes or bad interceptions or putting the ball in places he has no business doing because he gets desperate or freaked out by the situation and winds up trying to do things that are just foolish. Tom Brady underscored it great in the game, and these are the types of plays I've seen late in his first year as a starter last year, where he started looking and go, ooh, I saw a little Utah State Jordan Love. That's not good. And multiple times this year I've seen it, not just this game, but in the opener, where I saw some of that stuff. So he's got to calm that stuff down. But I'm afraid that this may be part of his DNA. And so what you may have with Jordan Love is that he's going to get them very close to where you want to ultimately go. And if this team isn't a monster and he has to put him on his back, he's going to have some of these moments, and they could be heartbreaking. But he's He's an excellent young quarterback. You want to see him get there. You just hope he can get over that hump. I just wonder if he ever will.
I'd like to see him play fully healthy. I don't know that we've seen that since the first week of the season. The Packers, they miss Aaron Jones. Nothing against Josh Jacobs. Doesn't seem to be as well-rounded a threat. His first receiving touchdown last week of his career notwithstanding. Do they miss Aaron Jones?
Oh, I think they do. I absolutely think they miss Aaron Jones. And I love Josh Jacobs as a runner, but he's more of a... Josh Jacobs and David Montgomery have a lot in common. You know, they're very good interior runners, excellent movement. They catch the ball extraordinarily well, and both were maybe a little underused in the passing game at certain points in their career, and maybe continue to be underutilized. But the reason maybe they're underutilized is that neither of them have great speed. And Aaron Jones has that burst that makes him both a good inside runner who can be a big play threat, a downfield receiver in better ways than Montgomery or Jacobs. And you see the way that the Vikings use him, everything, a lot of runs off tackle, around end. They can stretch the defense both vertically and horizontally with him in the game. And there are a few backs who can give you the toughness inside and the experience inside that Jared Jones has, but also that outside space game. You know, he's Bucky Irving and David Montgomery wrapped in one, and that's a nice thing to have. Yeah,
it is, and so we'll see how the Packers go going forward. I do think just in general, Jordan Love's health is going to be something as he gets healthy is going to be better. But yeah, I think a more well-rounded back. What about Chris Brooks? Wouldn't he? No.
We know. Hey, the speed ain't there, but everything else is pretty good. There are, he's getting. He got more touches than Emmanuel Wilson until the end of the game.
I see the momentum, and I had to mention it because I know you're watching closely. Jared Goff. We love the narratives, Matt. We love the narratives. Can't play on the road. Can't do this. Can't
that. Handle the blitz.
Can't do a
Brian
lot of
Flores
things.
Destroyed his career in that Miami game. Yeah.
So what are we saying here? Is he telling the narrative guys to shut the fuck up?
Well, I mean, let me ask my friend Kyle Brandt. Let me see. I can't find him. I think that Hugo put a hole in his head, made a smiley face out of him, and carried him off to bury him downstairs. I don't know. Jared Goff is playing excellent football, and the weather game, playing outdoors, was always the remaining narrative with him.
Just away and outdoors, or that's twofold.
Yeah, twofold. And division game away, outdoors in bad weather, and
completed his first 11 passes.
Yeah, it was fantastic. Now, at the same time, you can give Ben Johnson a lot of credit for game planning well. But as Tom Brady brought up, and I enjoy listening to Tom Brady. I have a friend who doesn't like Tom Brady's voice. I also have a friend who could do a mean imitation of Tom Brady. So it's kind of fun to like. And last night I kept thinking to myself, was the friend who didn't like Tom Brady's voice the one who sounded just like Tom Brady? And I was thinking, well, I'm going to test that. And I texted him and say, you could do a mean imitation of Tom Brady. And if I got like anger out of that, then I knew I had the right guy. But I just got to laugh. So that was good. But away from the side point here, Brady did a great job analyzing how playing in weather is really a trial and error event, and that it just takes time to do. And if you're in sunny LA all the time, where it's just basically, dry heat and smog, then, maybe not smog anymore, but just dry heat, a lot of heat, you're probably not dealing with torrential downfalls, and wind and all of that kind of stuff enough to really get it locked in. Whereas if you're in New England, you're going to get that shit locked in pretty quick in a hurry, or you ain't going to be there for very long, or Pittsburgh or Cleveland or any of the Rust Belt states. And now that Goff has been playing in these divisions, in this North Division, he's got to figure that out for Chicago and Green Bay, and it looks like he has.
So I feel like every single week on this show, I do some kind of reverse hurdle over you verbally, and I feel bad for it, but, it's how it is. Saquon Barkley took that to the playing field. You think he planned the reverse hurdle leapfrog in that game. That was amazing.
It was, and it's okay because I deliver the flops well when it comes time for you to do that thing, and then we finish. Then we get to each deliver our finishes, whether it's the brain buster or the DDT, and then we're friends again. So no, I don't think that was planned. I think what he planned was a spin move on the safety, and he was like, "Whoa, I tried to hit that too soon," and just made the most incredible elusive maneuver that we've probably seen in terms of like just turning shit into Shinola. I mean, it was like that was pretty awesome to see, because I mean all the moves there though were pretty awesome, because you see even the beginning
leading up to it, he does a lot of things that good running backs do. He puts his arm out with the forearm shiver, and good running backs get their arm away from their frame so that they can diffuse a lot of the force of the blow. He didn't need to even do that. He just ended up using it as more of a stiff arm to ward off. Good spin move. He split really wide to do it, but it gave the illusion that he was getting forward momentum, because he split wide and then just took a small step up with his right foot, and it made the defender think that he was getting closer than he really was, and then he was able to spin away, and then that second spin was like just a little too soon. But Jesus, that it literally looked like Jimmy Snuka, like when they whip him across the ropes and does the leapfrog, and then does the leapfrog backwards when the guy's coming around the other way. I mean, I was laughing. I was thinking Saquon Barkley was a wrestling fan, I think me and Ms. Diehard both left out of our collective seats there as we watched that one. Quite a play. Garrett Wilson. Let's go back to last Thursday. Garrett Wilson was inbounds with his Jordan-esque aerial TD.
Fuck no, but everybody saw that Jordan-esque type of, wide legs and the hand going up there looking like he was dunking but going backwards. Like it was like the dunk happened and came there. We didn't care, and the officials were like, give it to him. Because that back foot, when he landed with his knee, part of it was out of bounds. Like it's got to be inbounds first and then go out of bounds. It can't be out of bounds and inbounds at the same time and you call it. But
I think we've come to the point in this program in general, in the overall NFL simulation, where we can say safely that there is no such thing as a catch, and it's a minute by minute thing decided on a whim depending on how exciting a moment it was. I think we're in.
I would say that as well as a roughing penalty that it deserves an ejection. Brian Branch. I don't think Brian Branch was flipping off the Packers. I think he was flipping off New York. I think he was like, Roger, eat this, But
I think that might have been it.
But he was hot in the moment.
Even your boy Brady was not buying into that one.
But I will say this. I mean, to be fair, they're trying to protect the safety of individuals, and that was not a safe play, and he could have led up. So if they're going to come down a little hard line on that, they did send a message, and I think it was a good message to send.
They've been sending a lot of messages. They should start doing the same thing with the hip drops instead of fines a week later. Maybe penalties in game, maybe an ejection on occasion.
Yeah.
The Jets, by the way, are they still in the thick of it? Feel it or fuck it?
I'm feeling it because I know that people hate Aaron. Or at least half the country hates Aaron, just like half the country hates whatever presidential candidate that we throw up there. But and throwing up is probably the best word for all of it. But yeah, I think that. Oh, happy election day tomorrow, everybody.
Thank you.
Yeah, there we go. But with that in mind, I think that Rodgers, all the drama aside, Rodgers has always been the type of quarterback that is going to be in your face with your receivers and try and get the right communication down and all the different adjustments. And it takes a while. And he's had experience with that. So when he tells people to chill out, we still are in it. He's had experience to prove that. And I saw some nice adjustments to Garrett Wilson in the game that I think bear that out. He and Devontae Adams are both getting good production out of it. The whole fear that Adams is now no longer, or Wilson's no longer a factor, it's like the fear that, we're going to fall into mass chaos, in the coming days. Maybe that happens. I don't know. But, Bob is probably more prepared than I am. But, but at the same time, if you see if you if the world goes to hell in a handbasket in the next couple of weeks,
Come on over.
Bob will have the radio signal to probably still be doing a podcast.
Probably
At
so.
that point, I will probably be doing my version of The Road with my dog. That will probably
And heading my way.
yeah.
Jacksonville Jaguars. The struggle continues. Matt, were there personnel issues for them in this game? I mean, they were without Christian Kirk. A lot of guys beat up. Were they just cobbling together as best they can, or were there actual errors made?
I mean, I'm sure there were actual errors made too, but I think the thing that just kind of struck everybody that, like, as a Jaguars fan, is like, where the hell was Brenton Strange? Because you have this tight end who is a good receiver, who makes runs good routes, shows some red zone presence, and and he's gotten a lot of game experience and played well early on in the season and was productive. And you have a power run game, and that works pretty well with Tank Bigsby when you get two tight ends in there. And I understand that maybe Luke Farrell's a better blocker, so that's part of it. But you could at least create some illusions of possibly doing the run game with two tight ends, with Strange as the guy in the lineup. And I think you would have gotten more out of that than maybe having some inexperienced, albeit athletically talented receivers like Austin Trammell in the game. I like Austin Trammell as a late round guy who's bounced around the league, but he doesn't have a ton of experience, and you could see some of that in the game where he was late to get off the ball on some snaps that were routes to him. I believe he had a drop on one play, but I just think that they didn't put their best personnel and opportunities to succeed that could help the overall game plan. And Brenton Strange not getting a target was just a kind of a glaring thing, and that could be probably put both on Trevor and their offensive coordinator.
Yeah, they've had a rough run. It was interesting in the backfield usage too. What the hell was Tank Bigsby doing, running more routes than Travis Etienne? This was not what I was told was going to happen.
What we did tell you was that the Tank Bigsby trade away Tank Bigsby deadline was against Green Bay, because he's about to get his ass shut down until about the fantasy playoffs. I doubt very seriously he's going to give you anything more than running back 3, running back 4 production in the next several weeks.
Well, that's comforting. Thanks for that. Oh, what do we think about in that game? Philadelphia defenders, Nakobe Dean and Cooper DeJean, are they just getting started?
Oh yeah, they are absolutely just getting started. Nakobe Dean, the game-sealing interception was a thing of beauty. He basically cut off the Ernest Johnson on the route, and then I pointed it like a tight end. It was a thing of beauty. And then
many IDP dynasty shares of that young man.
Yes, I have one in a league that I blew up my team and traded away some stuff to one Bob Harris. But your old buddy Mikey tried to get pace from me this week. I told him hell no. But my dog would probably bite me if I did that. But with that said, I think him and DeJean's playing good football. He's showing really good understanding of angles and how to close, and he's helpful both in the pass and the run game. There's some pieces in place for Philadelphia to be able to shore things up and make a run, even with the help of their defense, even if their offense has some struggles at some point.
Can the same be said for Trayvon Diggs? We all saw 4th and 3. Kirk Cousins hits Darnell Mooney, a 36-yard touchdown, and Trayvon Diggs had no idea what the hell was going on. What's up with that guy?
Diggs, that was a weird adjustment for everybody, and Diggs has been struggling for weeks. I mean, struggling to be able to tackle. His tackling form has been awful, and you wonder if he's dealing with more injuries than what he's even had, and maybe he's not able to play at the level that's going to help this team. So rather than get on Diggs's case about this, I'd rather get on the case of the Dallas Cowboys on why they have this guy out here when every team knows that he's a weak point at this stage. And I think that when your physical capabilities are greatly diminished due to injury and pain, it's very possible that your conceptual capacity and faculties for the game suffer as well. So I think he was also the one that got beaten on the back shoulder fade to Drake London for the touchdown earlier in the game too, which was just a good play, good execution on the offense. But he's getting picked on, and that's really the point. And it's and it's logical that he is. And while I haven't seen enough of the before when he was healthy to remember how much better he was, it's got to have been significantly more than what we've seen right now.
So, our friend Eric Edholm over at NFL.com wrote the following. On a day when Kyler Murray and the Cardinals pass game had a quiet day, the run game stepped up in a big way. James Conner is the heartbeat of this team, and he's not slowing down as he approaches his 30th birthday. Feel it or fuck it.
Oh, totally feel it, man. What I remember, speaking of like Mike Thomas type of rants, I won't go that far, but I'll say I remember the day on a Monday night game several years ago when everybody and their grandmother were saying Benny Snell is the future running back of the Pittsburgh Steelers. He's got more burst. No, he didn't. More burst than James Conner, who got banged up in that Monday night game, and Snell had a 100-yard game. I think it was the only time he had a 100-yard game. And everybody was like predicting the demise of James Conner. And I remember doing a video and watching a few games of him and going, I don't know what the fuck everybody's talking about. This guy can still play football. And he's quick, he's agile, he's savvy, he can catch the ball, and he's still powerful. What the fuck is going on? It's the Steelers' offensive line that isn't all that good. Well, fast forward, and we've seen that like he's had excellent fantasy production for most of the years that he's been in Arizona.
Yes,
he's also one of the guys that people talk about on the box, whatever box you use to look at video, and who've been saying this is a guy who takes supreme care of his body, and he has basically extended his career because of how dedicated he is to nutrition and recovery and develop and working out and keeping himself healthy, and it shows.
I think he ran for 170 yards and 18 carries. I've been all in on him. We did see some signs of Trey Benson had a nice touchdown. Mario DiMarcado. You got to say it like that.
He had a run like a right winger or a left winger, didn't he?
Right. So McBride, Benson, and DiMarcado scored rushing touchdowns in the first half of yesterday's win. It was the first time in more than a century that the Cards had three different players score first half rushing touchdowns.
Bob, are you the James Conner of fantasy analysts?
I might be.
Okay.
I might be.
All
the
right.
last time that happened, 12-2-23 versus the Oorang Indians, a team led by Jim Thorpe.
Yeah.
Last time the Cardinals did that. That was 1923.
That was an Adam Harstead favorite who
bet.
likes to call me old, but he remembers these things.
All right. Demarcus Robinson is the only a good fantasy option when teams are distracted by Kupp and Nakua.
Yes, absolutely.
I didn't pray. He is a great fantasy option when teams are distracted.
Yes. I mean, he is. I mean, it's so funny too because like he's just good enough to be a matchup problem against weak defenders in great matchups, but he's not strong enough to be like the main man on his own.
But more important, Matthew Stafford trusts him like nobody, man. I mean, like, yes, he trusts Cooper Kupp. I get it. But like when just key single plays, he will throw him the ball no matter what.
Do you think that I think that something happened off the field where Matt Stafford feels like I trust this guy no matter what. Like this guy must have cleaned up some mess of his off the field, and he's like, dude, if you're gonna do that for me, you're getting the ball,
Devon Achane was fantastic yesterday. Looked like the guy we were all drafting to be. What did Raheem Mostert look like, and was he slept on?
Yeah, I think he is slept on. I mean, he's still a capable runner, and you're seeing that he's got a role, and if it's not just the goal line type of stuff. I think he gets some closeout opportunities. I think he's a guy that they also feel like if he gets hot early, they'll ride him. They'll play the hot hand a little bit because he's still fast. And so it works well in their offense. And I would argue he's maybe not as creative as Achane, but he's a little savvier. So
I would say you're not getting the fantasy value. You're not getting what your investment out of either of them, but you're more likely to get it at this point of the season where they're at. Devon Achane would have to make an incredible run to return value on that, like second round draft capital, whereas Mostert has a better chance of doing that.
Smart.
That's all. All right, I think we're done. I got to go prepare for the purge, the coming purge.
I'm going to go read Michael Thomas.
That might be the purge. That might be the start of the purge.
Yeah, it might. This might be fascinating here that's going on. But I got to sort through all the hip hop stuff that I could really care less about. It's
worth the effort.
I like hip hop, but I don't really care about all the ongoings of guys, in the hip hop game. That's not my thing. I'm sure you were shocked by that.
I am totally shocked by that, said another 60-some-year-old man. So here we go. All right, everybody. Thank you for coming around. I'm Bob Harris. You can follow me on the Twitter machine at Football Diehard. He's Matt Waldman at Matt Waldman. We don't make it hard. We're both at footballguys.com. Have all kinds of content going up throughout the week, both written. Matt has many, many other podcasts with really good hosts and not me, but also me. Go to Matt Waldman.
Especially you.
MattWaldmanRSP.com. Enjoyed my newsletter. Thank you very much, Matt.
You're welcome.
And check out the Daily Update podcast, Football Guys, the Audible channel, every morning. 10 minutes of
definitely.
stuff just to get your day started right. And I don't swear nearly as much as I do here, so fuck that.
Love you.
Goodbye.
Bye.